Greetings and welcome everyone to the post-screening conversation for the Boston Asian American Film Festival's centerpiece narrative of Coming Home Again. My name is Susan Chinson. I'm the festival director and creative producer at Arts Emerson, speaking to you today from the unceded land of the Wampanoag, Nipmuc, and Massachusetts tribal nations. We're so excited to be presenting today this fantastic conversation that encompasses so much of our Rising Together theme, offering context of connecting to humanity and sort of lived experiences that we're all experiencing. Personally, myself, I have been really eager to be able to present more work from one of my own personal idols in filmmaking, and that is Wang. When we heard about Coming Home Again, coming out from the Center for Asian American Media, it was the idea of two great institutions working together to present wonderful and independent filmmaking in the canon of Asian American cinema. We are joined here together to be able to present this in a context where 4 months ago, we would never have imagined having to have been in this situation. And here we are, still able to meet virtually. And we are in such great appreciation for all of you joining us today. Joining us today for this fabulous conversation is going to be a moderator joining us today from Emerson College, June Okada, who has just recently joined us on faculty at Emerson College, and will be joined here by Donald Young from the Center for Asian American Media, who is a producer on this film, as well as Jackie Chung, who plays the mother. We are so excited again to be featuring as a centerpiece here today with us, director Wang. And June, I'll let you take it on from here.
Thank you, Susan. Good evening, everybody. And I just wanted to welcome this wonderful panel. We have the film's director, Wang, a veteran director of feature films and Asian American film, the film star, Jackie Chung, and the film's producer, Don Young. This is a wonderful film that's gaining a lot of buzz in online and in reviews, and we're so privileged to have it featured in the Boston Asian American Film Festival. So I just wanted to ask some questions to get into this amazing film. I have questions for everybody, but let me start with you, Wayne. So I noticed, I read the essay. This film is based on an essay by
Chang-rae Lee.
Chang-rae Lee, and it's a beautiful essay. And I wanted to know how you got to know the author Chang-rae Lee, and what made you decide to want to make a film based on his work.
Well, actually, in the early 2000s, Chang-rae Lee and myself worked on a adaptation of another one of his books, actually called Just Your Life. And that's when I first read this short story from New Yorker. And then I've always sort of kept it in the back of my head for adapting, Coming Home Again. Don Young asked me to do a VR film originally, and we rented a camera, and I couldn't figure out how to do a VR film because you're always seeing at the same time the back of somebody's head. I mean, how do you tell a story that way? Maybe for an art piece, yes. I couldn't figure out how to tell a story with that. So, and then he was telling me about his grandmother who had an apartment in Russian Hill, Nob Hill, and who lived there for many years, and she passed away recently, and said that I should look at that apartment and maybe we can use it as a set. And I remember Coming Home Again as a short story, and everything just fell in place from there.
I see. So is that the reason why you chose to film the place in San Francisco? Because the essay or the short story takes place in Syracuse, New York, right? That's where the family, and even the Boston Turnpike is mentioned in the essay. But then, is it just because you are from San Francisco and you wanted to just interpret that through the city of San Francisco? And I mean, many of your films take place there. So is that the reason why, or?
That's pretty much the reason why. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to afford going over to the East Coast to make a film.
Right.
Uh, so, and also, I live around there, so I could literally walk to set. It's about 3 blocks away.
Mhm.
So that's a good excuse.
Yeah, I mean, and some people, I noticed, when I was watching the film, it did remind me of several of your previous films, and it did give me kind of flashbacks to Chana's Missing, because a lot of the exterior shots and are on location in San Francisco, and that flavor of San Francisco is definitely there, which I appreciated, and it's definitely, I think, a mark of the author. Did you enjoy filming it there?
Well, actually, there's only one exterior shot, and that's the opening
Yes,
shot where
right.
Justin is running up the hill. But it says everything in that one shot, and the
Yeah.
rest of it is pretty much in this house.
But
But
don't
there are
they?
small details about the configuration of the apartment that really tells you it's San Francisco.
Yeah, true.
For example, the back stairs. Little things like that, the front windows. And
But
so,
doesn't the protagonist meet his friend on the streets in Nob Hill?
oh, yeah, that's the only other
Yeah.
scene.
That
I
was a
forgot.
long scene, and it seemed so improvisational. Was some of the dialogue seemed like it totally reminded me of your previous films, especially Chana's Missing, in terms of the improvisational quality. I
Yeah,
see that as your kind of signature.
that scene was completely improvised.
Yeah, I could. Yeah.
So, and I basically told them, you guys know each other, and just make it up from there.
Right.
And Jackie was actually in the background with her kid going
Mhm.
into the supermarket to buy something, and that sort of made it
Ah,
all more interesting. She actually comes out in the background.
oh, really?
Well, also the friend is my husband.
Yes.
Oh, really? Is that your
Yeah.
husband?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of sad though, because as soon as he finds out about, well, you, Jackie, playing the mother, I mean, as soon as he finds out about the cancer, he kind of backs off a little bit, which I found to be really a little bit sad, and right, in the scene, and they're old friends, but then there's something about cancer, and there's something about, I don't know, the terror of like your mother dying, that maybe, is something that strikes fear in some people, or no.
Yeah, it's always embarrassing to kind of be having a conversation with your friend, and the friend says, "Oh, my mother has cancer,"
Right.
or my sister, or I have cancer.
Mhm.
It becomes an awkward situation right away.
Yeah. So, speaking of Jackie, let me ask you a question. How was it? What was it like to play this unique role of, the same character, much older, and the much older version and a much younger version? What was that like for you?
Um, well, every day I would check in with Wayne and be like, how old am I today? How am I feeling today? Who
Mhm.
am I? um, I don't know. I kind of enjoy it. I've done a lot of theater and
Mm.
I've played like multi-track roles where you're playing different people. So you kind of have to bounce in and out.
Mhm.
So I kind of enjoy it,
Yeah.
having like a little bit of a journey and
Mm.
different times to play. But it is a challenge to try to age yourself just like a decade.
Right, just a decade, right?
Yeah,
As
a
she,
decade or
Yeah,
two. Yeah.
the thing that made it helpful was that when she has the cancer, basically she's always wearing a cap and not much makeup,
Mhm.
uh, because she's sick and all that. And all the flashbacks, she is different degrees younger, but she has makeup and she looks great in those shots. So
Yeah.
there's a nice contrast to establish that age.
Mhm.
Almost the whole film happens in one day with the son, Justin Chung, cooking a New Year's Eve dinner in the same way that the mother would have cooked it for everyone else.
Mhm.
And the flashbacks come on and off during the day as he prepares the meal. So
Mhm.
there are different time zones in the flashbacks. And those are the days where, Jackie and I have to discuss what she should look like. How young, how old, how made up, blah, blah.
Mhm.
I guess it did help though that the younger days were the healthier days
Yes.
in terms of
So
look
that's
and energy. So yeah, that was helpful.
Mhm. Um, uh, and did you encounter any specific challenges in translating the? I mean, I call it an essay, but I guess it's a kind of an essay short story to film. I mean,
Well,
were
I guess
there
maybe this is a question for Don now.
oh,
It
okay.
was difficult. I wanted to do it. I wanted to do the film really, really low budget. I mean, as low as we could do it because we almost didn't have any money.
Mm,
So the question is, I'm in the union. I'm DGA. Jackie is SAG, and Justin is SAG. So how do you make a really low budget film with all these unions involved? So not easy. So Don, you want to talk about all that?
Not a whole lot. The union, we were union compliant, and there, as you can see in the credit, there are a ton of people from the different ones we had to work with. But maybe the question in the context of that is, how did we create, a film that, I mean, and then so when we were, I'll always remember what Jackie had a play going on in between our filming, right? So we really tried to make the shooting as chronological as possible, but in addition, we had to work with creating a certain kind of intimate space. Jackie was probably always in not even just the two spaces in the film, but also in a play, right? So, when we set out to do the film, we were on the one hand trying to be chronological, but really play around. The characters really brought a lot of their own experience, improvising, every morning, kind of huddling with Wayne and trying to figure out what was happening. And there was a lot happening in the city at that time, like outside lands. And the city was really kind of at its most amped up San Francisco pre-COVID that perhaps it's ever been, right? And I think there was sort of that outside world that we always felt was very kind of the counterpoint to what was happening and taking place in the house and with the family itself.
Yeah, because it's a very quiet
Mhm.
film, right?
Mhm.
I mean, even though I think the character of San Francisco is clearly there in the architecture and in the two exterior shots. I mean, I'm from California, so obviously it's like San Francisco. However, the film is very notable for its long takes, the art cinema, like long takes, and it's surprising how still and quiet it is. I mean, knowing that there was a lot going on in the city at the time.
Mhm. Yeah, and to that point, the very first shoot, remember, Wayne, there was a lot of construction going on nearby. And needless to say, for a lot of the crew and for myself, we were like, oh, this is going to be 14 days of that kind of construction. But Wayne actually got excited about that texture, right? And really,
Mm.
that was sort of the give and the take creatively of whatever, for Cam, we're very comfortable with documentary style kind of approach. And I think
Mm.
shooting in a space and building this with the characters, it was probably a more familiar space than if everything was really specifically scripted and production managed in a way that had to stay very, very specific and timed.
Mhm.
Yeah, the idea of making a film like this with a small crew and a low budget is that you have to adapt to whatever that's going on that's there. Like I remember one day, there was a whole group of young people who were already stoned and drunk before going out to the Outland Festival, and we heard all of it. So anyway, but it was nice texture for us.
Mhm, mhm. So let me just ask, I mean, maybe all of you, you all know that Wayne has been making films, particularly Asian American films. He's a very important figure in Asian American film history and media history. Of course, Chan is Missing, which I know was called Fire Over Water when you first released it, and it showed at the Asian Cinevision Film Festival in New York City in the late 1970s. And yet, Wayne is also one of those directors who's been very successful in Hollywood and also the non-Asian American independent film. So Wayne, you've had so many different kinds of experiences and different kinds of films, But how would you say, but now you come back and you've always kind of come back to Asian American public media. So how would you say, and all of you too, like Jackie as a performer, Dawn as a producer, how important is has Asian American independent production, as a field, as a community, been to your work? Jackie as an actor, Wayne as a director. Well, Dawn, you've always worked for Cam, so. But yeah, I mean, especially in this era, right, where we have Crazy Rich Asians, the Farewell, and like there's just so much more out there. But what does that really mean, if you're not coming back to the Asian American, public media kind of roots?
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember, I'm curious to hear from Jackie and Wayne. We at the time we only filmed for a 2-week period, but in that period of time, two really important moments in the community were happening. It was the 25th anniversary of the Joy Luck Club, right, Wayne? There was a lot sort of that kind of, a lot of arrangements were happening for screenings and conversations. And then Heidi Levitt, one of our EPs, and then who found Jackie, was, she had shared a link of the initial auditions of all the women for Joy Luck Club, which is like really ought to be like put in some kind of time capsule, right? And then separately, literally as we were filming, Crazy Rich Asians came out, right? So a number of the cast and crew went to go watch it together. So it was really, I think it was not so much informing what the film is, but maybe more importantly, creating a sort of space in front of and behind the camera, which, I think the film is explicitly meant to be a statement about, there are different kinds of stories, and in some ways the stories that are closest to us are, we hope a story that the community gets excited about telling, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really, it's good that Crazy Rich Asians and Farewell and, different Asian films are coming out now. But it still needs a lot of variety. And, and this film is really different in that, the narrative is not that important compared to actually the process of cooking the food for that night. The environment, the whole apartment is very important. There are a lot of shots of the apartment, the objects in the room. So it's a different way of telling a story, and really giving people a chance to sort of, get deeper into these characters.
Right. The approach is completely different. I think, movies about food especially tend to be more sort of in the art cinema category. I mean, some of my most favorite movies about food, are not like genre films. They're not like Hollywood films. And I really loved the cooking sequences as well. Was that really Justin making the food, or did you have somebody else making the food?
Well,
When he was cutting the kalbi.
both. Actually, Jackie did some cooking.
Okay.
Justin did some cooking, but we also hired a consultant who's a 3-star chef here called Chang-rae Lee. He actually spent a lot of time, almost 2 weeks, in the afternoons, teaching Jackie and Justin how to cook these dishes. Because we showed the whole process of the dish, especially the cutting, the preparation, the sauces, and then the cooking itself. The kalbi is a really important one because it's so metaphorical for the film. Is like you have to slice it a certain way so that the flesh is connected to the bone still, because the bone lends its taste to the rest of it.
It's richness. Yeah, it's richness.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, I hope, Jackie learned something from all the cooking lessons.
Well, actually, Justin had a lot of cooking lessons, but because I was doing the play, I missed most of them. So I only got to go once.
Yeah.
Which I was sad about. But yeah, my husband does most of the cooking. And I had also, the play actually that Heidi cast me in had cooking on stage. And my husband was like, I don't know how you keep getting cast in things where you have to cook. It's terrible. I always say it's my best acting because people are like, wow, you must be amazing. And I'm like, no, I'm actually not.
Well, you're a good actor, that's why. You make it look very convincing. So now this film has was premiered at Toronto, right?
Mhm.
And now it's making its rounds. I want to know what, I know we're on Zoom and everything, but what has been the reaction from mainstream like festivals and audiences versus more niche like Asian American festivals and audiences?
Don or
I don't know.
Jackie?
It's hard to say, right? Because
Well,
we're all in
Jackie,
this
the
virtual world.
interesting, the
We
interesting
should ask
side
Jackie because
story
Jackie's
Yeah.
gone.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
ask Jackie.
Yeah,
I
what
would
has
like
been your
to hear from
experience,
Jackie.
Jackie, like going, I mean, if you've been to other festivals and
Yeah, well, I went to Toronto and I went to Busan.
okay.
And in Toronto, people were coming up to me after and hugging me. And
Wow.
yeah, I felt like, I don't know why, but to me, it felt like, I don't know, there was something maternal, like they were thinking about their mothers, but they just like hugged me, which was lovely. Like I felt like they were really moved by it. I'm not sure in Korea. I didn't get to talk to people after like we did in Toronto. But the people that I did meet were very excited about it because I wasn't sure how they would feel about an Asian American film in Asia,
Hmm.
but they seemed to really respond to it, which I don't know.
In Busan?
Yeah.
and the interesting thing was, I think it all happened kind of accidentally, but Jackie gave birth to our baby in Busan.
Wow.
And for me, that's such a great blessing in a way, sort of, the film is about the death of a mother, but at the same time, going to a festival, Jackie gave birth to her baby. So life and death, is always kind of hand in hand in an interesting
Mm.
way. The great blessing for the film.
Yeah. So, and
Well,
also,
but it's also I'm sure Jackie, one of the most, making films can be stressful, but hearing that news and trying to stay in touch with Jackie is easily one of the most anxious things I've ever gone through in life. Um, so,
Yeah.
we're all glad we're here, but, and everybody's healthy, but it's quite a story, but Jackie has been amazing, and we would like to thank her in front of everybody.
Yeah.
It was
And it
indeed
must
a
have,
harrowing experience.
yeah,
It was a little
it
bit
must,
at times.
must have been difficult because her whole family was there and they basically stayed there for 3 or 4 months, right? Or 3 months
We
at
lived there
least.
for 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to enroll my son in school there, my older son. And my mom flew out, my in-laws came, we had to get an apartment. I mean, we were full on living there
in Busan?
in Busan. Yeah. Yes. It was, I mean, in the end, it was,
Yeah.
I guess, a good
The U.S. consulate came down to certify your son,
yeah.
right, as an American citizen, so he
I mean,
doesn't
we're
have
getting,
to.
I guess, off topic, but you're supposed to bring your baby to the consulate in Seoul. And we were like, we cannot bring our baby. So yeah, they made a special trip and came and brought his birth certificate. Yeah,
Wow.
it was crazy. It was very crazy.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
So Jackie, I'm in playing this character then, I mean, you were already a mother and you just gave birth. Like, was there any special insight in terms of your own experience in terms of playing this character? I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of like, your relationship with Justin's character and yeah.
I mean, yeah, I have two boys, and anytime I see a boy of any age, like I'll see a 12-year-old, and in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, when my kids are 12, this is what they're going to be like. It's like I see a 20-year-old, and I'm like, oh my God, that's going to be my son. He's going to be trying to drink beer. And I visualize them at every age, even close to my age. So somehow it wasn't difficult, even though Justin and I are very close in age, I think.
Yes,
Yeah, but I don't know. Part of it was that everyone was just really open and he was very open. And so I think building a relationship between us was very easy.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It just kind of fell into place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember Jackie always talking about thinking of her own mother also while she was playing this character. And I'm sure if I met Jackie's mother, I would see a lot of sort of little traces of characteristics in that character. Anyway,
I think what's powerful about this film is that we all think about all of our mothers. I mean that's what makes it, just the story itself so poignant, is that, many of us do have mothers, and that time will come one day, right? And that's very, very sad. So it's just a very universal story. So simple story, but a very universal one. So I'm going to now go to some of the questions that I'm getting from the audience. And speaking of your great scenes with Justin, we have one question from the audience for Jackie. How did you and Justin Chon create such a natural dynamic between your characters? Were there any stumbling blocks when you started filming together?
I think in general it was pretty easy. I think we both, I don't know, it's also Wayne, set the tone. And so I feel like early on he said, we're here to collaborate and create something. And we have kind of an outline, but I'm curious to see what you guys bring and what comes out of this relationship between you two. And so I think having that kind of freedom just allowed us to play. There were definitely scenes that were improvised, and I think some of the early ones were not good because they're not in the film, but like Wayne let us go through them and let us just try to see where they would go. And so I think probably through that too, we built a rapport. And
so
yeah.
you did improvisational work with Justin?
I mean, we were shooting things and just
Okay,
trying
yeah.
some things. Yeah, but I think the early ones we were still, maybe it was a little wonky at first when we were figuring it out, but I think in terms of a person to person level, it was always very easy.
Okay. Another question. I would love to hear more about the process. I guess this is for Wayne. I would love to hear more about the process of translating the Chang-rae Lee's original essay to the film. Like, were there any parts in the writing that were difficult to translate in film? And I know that, so just to interject here, but I know that Wayne, you have also done adaptations of the Paul Auster stories, right? In Blue in the Face, and right. And so, yeah, I'd like to know what your process is, because I mean, Paul Auster is obviously not a very easy, writer to translate, but you did both of those films very well, and this one as well. So, yeah.
well, I think it's very generous and gracious of Chang-rae to give me the short story, even though it's very biographical and very close to him. He was actually very busy and out of town during that period that we were preparing the script and preparing everything. So I took the short story and was very respectful of it and trying to make, scenes out of as much as possible from the story in the memory flashbacks. And I think the rest of it was mostly cooking the food, preparing the food, and more processed things than anything else. And those were just sort of added for visual, reasons. But we were really respectful for the for most of the body of the film and the flashbacks. The thing that became difficult was, and this relates back to what Jackie was saying too, where Justin was feeling kind of pumped up about his character throughout. We shot in sequence. So he was slowly coming to me and saying, I have all this frustration. I have to let it out. I have to let it out. So it wasn't until at the dinner scene, and I didn't know what he was going to do. I said, this is the time to do it if you want to do something. And he basically kind of let it all out during dinner. And that was a
table. He slams the table. When he slams the table?
He did more than that. He threw food at everyone, and all kinds of things. Anyway, he just let it all out, and Jackie had to deal with it. I had to deal with it. So that was a very interesting part of the whole process, I think. But we were always respectful of the short story. But the short story is more emotional, more elliptical, more like a poem. And we had to find the conflict and the frustration in the characters in a film. So that's what I did with the actors every day, is to try to find those little conflicts that build up.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, another question. Are the mother-daughter relationship and the husband-wife relationship included in the original essay? I mean, I could answer that question, but yeah. So you chose to have the daughter more of a fleshed out character. I actually cried when she was talking, like the long shot through the window of the daughter coming in and crying. Like I cried because that's sad. And but she's more of a character fleshed out, right? I mean, she's only barely mentioned in the essay. And also the husband and wife relation. I think it's really interesting that like the husband is just, he's just kind of, I mean, I hate to say this, but he's kind of useless, I mean, he's just not there. And and then the closeness that the mother and son share is also quite striking. One might even say like there's like an Oedipal situation almost happening. I don't know if my interpretation is a little like going over the border there, but I think there is. It's like when Jackie's character is when Justin is like chasing her around and she's going into the shower, I just noticed she's like, do you want to follow me in, into the shower? And I know she's the character's joking, but it's like, that's how close they are. Right. And I think this is a very special relationship that the son and mother have. So I think it's not, even though I said it was a universal story, I think it's also a unique story for these two characters, that they're a little closer than, than the average son and mother. Yeah. I don't know, Jackie, you want to say something? I don't know.
Wasn't my decision about the husband's relationship with the mother.
Yeah.
But I do think it is all about the son and his mother and the regrets that they have. So, you're putting the microscope on them and their relationship. But yeah, there's so much regret and so much love. So it did come out. I guess it could be interpreted that way.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and also you're so young. I mean, you're so. I know that you're older when you have cancer in the film, but and then Justin barely he barely changes. And we know, Asians don't age as quickly as other people. But you also look so young when you're playing, your younger self. And so the closeness in age, and you're both like attractive young, people. It just seems to me that obviously there would be a closeness there, close in age, close in interests, right? Whereas the dad is like working in his lab somewhere, right? So that also came out to me as well.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting that there's a really close relationship between the son and the mother. I consciously sort of push that a little bit more because I think there's always that element psychologically, and emotionally in that relationship. Um, the father, on the other hand, he's working, he's never there, like you said, which is pretty common among, Asian families, although I'm sure there are great Korean fathers who actually stay home and very close to their kids and whatnot. But I just don't want to be crucified again for saying, all Asian males are negative characters.
Well, Justin's character isn't.
What?
Justin's character.
Yeah, Justin is a great character, so they can't do that with me on this one. Then no, but the father, had an affair, and that was really hurtful for the mother, and the son was very angry about that, and that's in one of the flashbacks, and that was the main thing I was, trying to kind of interject into that relationship. But otherwise, he was kind of not quite there, and probably not taking care of the mother as well as he could have, even though he says, "Oh, I can take care of your mother." He's kind of based on a professor who's from UC Berkeley, and he kind of played himself in a certain way, and he really understood that character. I don't know what he's like in real life, but he understood that character very well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess we can just ask the last question, and that is, what are the projects that all three of you have lined up? What's the next project for you guys? Jackie?
I have no idea.
It's hard, now, right, with the pandemic.
It's been tough with the pandemic. Auditions have started to pick up. So I know there are productions happening here, and I have friends who are working in Vancouver, and a friend who's leaving tomorrow for Atlanta. So things are starting to pick up. I shot a short with a friend on Zoom.
Yeah, a lot of that
So
Great.
I'm sure he's working on that. Yeah, which was kind of fun. But my husband, who was in the film, is also an actor. So we're
Okay.
always juggling projects and
Right.
where we're going to be, and so.
Do you work in Asia at all? You and or your husband?
He has done a little bit there.
Mhm.
I have not, but
Yeah.
we've lived there before.
Right. Yeah.
We go again.
Yeah. And Wayne, what are your upcoming projects?
Well, I'm working with a group at Stanford called Stanford Asian Care. They're all doctors. And we're trying to develop a series called Asian Health and Wellness in 6 different cities in Asia, dealing with different aspects of Asian health. Like, for
Wow.
example, stomach cancer is really big in Korea. Why is that? And how are they dealing with it and things like that. So
Wow, that sounds
that,
fun.
or for example, the other one is really interesting is that India didn't have a very good ambulance service, and they still don't, even though they've sort of instituted one. But the idea of not having an ambulance service gets really crazy.
So
So
does that mean, are you going to Asia to film?
mhm.
So this isn't
Yeah,
going to happen until next year then, sometime.
probably not going to happen until next year.
Okay. Wow,
But
that sounds so
the
exciting.
first series, the first pilot is actually going to be done around here, around Stanford, with the idea of it's called sitting the moon. In the Chinese tradition, if you have a baby, you actually get someone to help you. I don't know, get healthy again and take care of the baby in the right way for the first month, and it's really important.
Wow. And is this a PBS series?
No, it
Or
might be
oh,
if
it might be. Yeah,
if Don and Cam might get involved, and we'll see. Yeah,
that sounds really good.
yeah.
Looking forward to it. And Don, what is the next what's on the next like on the slate for Cam in terms of producing? Because I think that's really an interesting area.
We're developing projects always and trying to figure out how to support the community in these. This year in terms of culture making has just kind of transformed everything for everybody, right? New assertions. We just delivered a performance show. We filmed with Lea Salonga in Australia at the Sydney Opera House.
Wow.
Sort of the last show before they're getting a remodel, but that's premiering in the fall, and we're always trying to keep busy and figure out how to support a burgeoning community. We certainly hope Jackie gets a lot more. I mean, she's gotten some very nice reviews, but hopefully,
Yeah.
she's done really well in theater, but hopefully some film and TV can go her way because it's
Yeah, exposure with
a
this film.
special performance, right?
So will this film be released wider now that it has distribution?
It's,
Where will it be shown?
it's playing like through Outsider Pictures, like in 70 cities, digital.
Yeah.
And this is all just really changed. Wayne and I speak about a lot where, press would never, film reviewers would not consider, basically a digital upload as a legitimate release, as recent as like June or July. The film's been very fortunate where that's kind of, I think these new opportunities and directions are, some things die off in the industry and other opportunities emerge. And we're fortunate where the film's coming out at a time where these digital releases with local theaters, I think it's a positive development that hopefully can be a new lifeline for these kinds of films, right? That's the hope.
Yeah, I think everyone's on the same page with that, right? I mean, even like big Hollywood movies are like, I mean, it's just we're all being equalized by this pandemic. So let's get through this, somehow. But I know I read, really positive review in the New York Times and the Boston Globe. I mean, that is amazing. So I know that
LA Times, Washington Post.
LA
there's
Times,
been a
yes. I mean,
handful of
all like really good
wonderful
reviews. Yeah, I mean, it's like stellar talent. Wayne is like famous director. Jackie's, is like doing a lot of great work, and Cam is also, getting on the map too. I mean, so I'm really, really happy for all of you, and fabulous film, wonderful job. Thank you. I guess we're gonna have to close now, and that's all the time that we have. I would like to thank each and every one of you, our guests, director Wayne Wang, producer Donald Young, and actress Jackie Chung. This film is up for an Audience Choice Award, everybody. Please cast your audience ballot by clicking on the button on the bottom of your screen on the viewing window. Please visit BAAFF.org to view the whole lineup. Hashtag BAFFF 2020. Stay safe and healthy, and good night. And this is the end of the Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.